Hi, this is Crackball Gaming and welcome to our channel. And if you're new, please subscribe. Now what I'd like to talk about today, and I'd like to bring this up because Itty, Big, and I have been experiencing this a lot with Avengers lately.
Marvel's Avengers.
Yes. Live service games suck ass. They just do. No one's been able to figure it out.
They do suck. Big booty.
Big booty.
Big booty.
So I wanted to go over why they suck and
how they suck.
Why I think that it should be pretty easy to fix what they're doing. But I don't know why they don't get it. Why can't they figure it out? And I'd like to focus on Avengers, but we'll go to Anthem and any other live services that people can think of. Most of them you forget about, like Battlefield 5, because they did such a poor job.
That's right. I did forget Battlefield 5 was supposed to be a live service.
So let's talk about what live service replaced. Live service replaced season passes,
DLCs.
Yeah. The kind of thing where it's like on Battlefield, you'd buy the $60 game, then you'd buy the $50 premium pass, and then you would get all the different maps and everything later.
Yeah, maps.
So that's what they replaced. So you think we'd be getting something better now because it's in the future, and they'd come up with better ways to deliver content to us. It was sold to us, hey, we're not going to split the player base. Payer base. There you go.
That's exactly what the player base is. Same thing, right?
Is.
Exactly.
So they're not, they're trying not to split the player base. That's how they sold it to everyone.
So it sounded good.
So, however, what did we get instead? We have gotten essentially incomplete, non-complete games at launch.
Bare bones.
And barely any content drip-fed to us over the course of 1 to 2 years before the parent company drops the game entirely.
Yeah, I won't even say it's not even 1 to 2 years. I feel like it's even 6 months.
Yeah.
So we don't know how. The reason we are talking about this is because Avengers has hit on this nerve again. They're showing a player base bleeding down to very few in PC. We don't know how that's going in console. We're enjoying the game, but there are dramatic problems with their content feed so far.
So what we're seeing some red flags, and we're seeing similarities with Avengers live service that we've seen in the past from other live service games that more or less have failed.
Now, Avengers has only been out a month at the point we're making this, so it hasn't been forever. They've already said new content is coming. They haven't given exact dates, but there's an expectation that some new stuff is coming out in about a week. So it'd be a month and a couple weeks since the launch.
Since any content has come out.
Well, they have put a little bit in, but it was single-player content, which...
in a multiplayer-based endgame.
Right, that's the problem. They really missed the target there. They have been trying to fix a number of bugs. They had a 1,000-bug patch that created more problems.
2,000
way
bugs.
more bugs.
Well, I don't want to say way more bugs, but
it created way more problems.
We
for us.
saw more issues for sure.
For sure, yeah.
So here's the problem. These games charge $60. These are not free-to-play games that then have a service afterwards that are trying to separate you from your money like Fortnite. I mean, Fortnite has a fine model. It is free. You can play it. You can play it with friends. You can play it across all these consoles now. And then if you want to stay current and you're not playing as much, you probably have to invest some money. That's how they're going to make money. Cool. I don't really have a huge problem with that. You pay $60, we get a short campaign. All of these were short campaign. Anthem was a short campaign. Battlefield 5 wasn't even a campaign, really.
It was less campaign than Battlefield 1, which was a less campaign than Battlefield 4.
Yes, it's just been reducing in campaign. You almost want to have them drop the campaign at this point.
Yeah, just forget about it.
And then Avengers was, again, a short campaign. It was a pretty good campaign for this type of game. It had a story.
Give you that. It was interesting.
It had character development. It was good. I thought it was pretty good. It was not worth $60 by far. It was too short, but it fed you into the multiplayer in a reasonable way, introduced you to the characters, gave you a reason to care if you need that to play. Then you get to multiplayer, and what you find is a framework for good content,
right?
But the good content is not all there. It's fairly shallow, and this is what we see every time.
Yes.
Battlefield 5 launched with the fewest amount of maps in history of Battlefield, basically. At least modern Battlefield.
Yeah.
Anthem basically had nothing to do and no reason to go to the higher level difficulties, and loot wasn't dropping very well. Avengers feels about the same way. You can get loot whatever difficulty you're on, and you're not getting like huge amounts of loot like you kind of need to if you want to max min, if you're spending lots of hours in that. So these live service style games miss the mark because they don't launch with $60 worth of content.
No, they don't.
And not only do they need to launch with $60 worth of content, they need to front load their live service in the first month or two.
Right,
you need to show support, not wait months to see something.
Exactly, because the first couple months is when you're going to really solidify your player base, where you're going to grab people. That's where you have the most interest, where you will really hook in players for the long term. And that's what their goal is. They want this live service to go not just for a couple months, but years.
Well, because you forgive a microtransaction model for a live service, right?
Yes.
I paid $60. You better not have me paying for all this extra content. If you want me to maybe pay money for costumes or, emotes or cosmetics, if you want me to pay for cosmetics, that's fine. Because people can choose. Cosmetics are not that important to some people, really important to others. If that's the market you're going after for money, fine. But the content needs to come. Otherwise, no one will stick around to buy cosmetics, right? It doesn't matter how pretty you look if it's boring to do the things you're doing.
Yeah.
An Avengers gameplay loop, the combat is fun. The environments you're playing in and the enemies
are pretty boring.
Well, they get old after a while. Then that's all you're doing. That's why that drip feed of new content, new enemies, new areas, new challenges. I mean, for Avengers specifically, no horde mode. Anthem had the same problem. They're designed to be co-op 4-player brawlers, basically shooter brawler mix. And there's no horde mode, no proper horde mode.
It's really surprising because that could really open up a lot of options for you. Loot distribution, fun for players to test out their builds, all kinds of different things.
I mean, there's just no wave-based infinite mode either.
Right. Not even. Here's the other thing. There are so many examples of games that are doing it well. Warframe is a perfect example of how many different modes, expansion, everything. That game, again, free-to-play model. But Warframe, Fortnite, they show the model of how you have to continually keep your audience invested to keep them coming back.
Right.
Destiny does, DLC drops, really, season drops, and that's a different way of going about it, but it's not. I wouldn't classify Destiny as a live service in the way they do things. Diablo 3, if you're talking about a looter, is a great example of, at the end of Diablo 3's life, all the things it had involved in it. Right. You had the rifts that were great, ways to upgrade and even risk going further in a rift versus stopping earlier because you may think you've hit your limit and do your upgrades on the gems before going later. There are concepts in there that all these people making these games like Anthem, like Avengers, don't seem to be paying attention to. Because a lot of these games still made the same mistakes up front. And I know this is Crystal Dynamics' turn to make the same mistakes, but why do we have to keep making the mistakes? Live service games basically shouldn't be a thing because nobody can pull them off properly.
Look, when the developers say they look at the best looter games like Diablo 3 and Destiny and stuff, and they learned from their mistakes or learned from those games, and then we see nothing that shows they actually learned in all of these cases.
Well, maybe they just misunderstood what the mistakes were.
Well, I mean, if you're looking at Diablo 3 launch and modeling your game after that, yeah, I could kind of understand.
Right, but you go back to, like, Avengers, their mistake is they didn't lean into characters. They should be dropping characters. Even if they don't drop content,
for sure.
If you were dropping new characters at a faster rate, that would be exciting, right? I understand. I understand maps and content can take a little while, but you should have some of these things ready to go. An infinite horde mode, leaderboards, anything would be something you could have put in place way ahead of time that would keep people entertained. Right? Give people a path to get better and better loot if they can challenge themselves to go further and further in something. Not repeat the same runs 1,000 times with the 2 bosses you have and then 2 mechs that you fight against. It's just not entertaining after a while. And Anthem. Maybe it's the problem with live services that begin with A. Anthem. Anthem's problem was, again, the fluidity of motion and how you moved around that world map was really fun. Right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I loved it.
Some of the special moves were actually quite cool, but the enemy types you were fighting all the time, and you had like 3 kind of raid environments, strongholds essentially. The first one was the best, the one with the huge spider. You saw that in the demo like a year before that game came out, though. The other 2 weren't any good. That first one was the best, and it was the one you'd seen forever. You played in the demo, and then you played in the beta, and then you played again in the game, and that was it. Like, it never got better than that. That's a problem, right? So there is a major problem with content delivery in live services.
Yes.
They should have, as I said, the first 3 months should be planned out and built before the game comes out.
Oh, 100%.
So you're just putting it out there.
Well, they should be working to actually put a full game out at release, as we talked about with Avengers and what we saw, in other games. It's a framework. It's a framework.
Right. I didn't pay $60 for a framework. What I want to see is, even if you don't launch the full game at launch day, you have developed the full game. And all you're doing then is delivering it in that first month or 2, so it fleshes out quick, everybody's getting something new to experience or look forward to, and you feel almost overwhelmed with content. That's what you want to feel like. It's like, oh man, this is serious. And then you can slow it down, because people are going to be feeding into all that content you had planned because it was a full $60 experience. But instead what you get is what I would consider a $30 starter charge, $20. And then in a year from now, I guarantee you that Avengers will look like a different game and it will be worth $60. Right. But because it started off so badly, everybody paid bargain bin pricing for it later and gets all the characters for free and everything. I mean, it's not a good move for Crystal Dynamics. The numbers of sales, the number of players, it's much, much smaller than even Anthem was. And I think people are realizing live services just suck. They just do. Like, we haven't seen anybody pull them off, and we're going to be surprised one day when somebody does.
Anybody who's paying like a $60 game live service hasn't been pulled off.
Right, that's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because you do put free-to-play games in a different category. Right? You expect less, and when you get more, you're like, wow, this is great. When I'm paying $60 and you're saying, hey, this is going to be run as a live service going forward, we've just seen all of the support for those games peter out. The only ones we saw was Battlefront 2 started horribly because it's such a huge franchise. Disney forced EA to work on it and continue to make it get better.
And now it's a pretty good game.
It's a pretty good game, but it's hard to go back to. If you're part of that horrible launch, sometimes it's really hard to get back into it. I don't know what kind of player base they really ended up with.
I would agree with you on that, because you start playing a game, if you get a bad taste for it in your mouth, it's really difficult to put that to the side and really get into reshaped, the new updated game. And for me, it makes me angry when I think about it a little bit too, because then I'm playing this game and I'm like, why couldn't this game be more like this, or it should have been like this?
It should have been like this, which makes you
in the beginning,
which makes you not want to buy another game like that, and which means you're waiting, and the more people wait, the less sales that games will have initially, and they will fail like this, because I think that obviously if you don't have the sales in the player base, then the developer gets cold feet, the publisher gets cold feet. Look at Battlefield 5. Ended support really early for that game.
Nearly immediately.
Well, not nearly immediately, but they also didn't do much with it. They didn't provide a whole lot. For the longest time, we didn't get a new map. Like, I think it was 3 or 4 months in. That's a killer. I much would have rather have paid a premium price upfront, $60 for additional content, and knowing that they would have 3 to 4 huge map drops with 3 or 4 maps in each drop on a cadence that would get me the first 8 months a lot more activity and content. It was just so disappointing to see that live service was like, oh my god, finally we're going to have the community together. Then realize there's no community because they never built it. Like, they have to deliver. You know,
they do.
And so to a live service, you expect a company to actually have a plan to deliver live service, because it's not like making a game and then you get to make content later. You actually have to make that content mostly ahead of time, and a lot more you have to have it all planned out, and it doesn't seem like anybody does. I mean, Avengers, I don't know that they're going to come out with the characters any faster, and I don't know how long it takes them to make levels. But seeing the lack of variety, I mean, we have snow levels, we have forest levels, we have forest on fire levels, right? We have desert levels, and we have city and indoor levels. That's it. So if they didn't have it ready, how long is it going to take to get different world levels, Wakanda levels,
space levels,
whatever, right? So I don't know that there's much more to say than live services suck. They should probably just stop doing live services and make sure you make a $60 game And if you
Yes.
make enough content to make a DLC patch, I think people will buy it.
Oh, for sure.
So those were our deep thoughts. If you agree or disagree, give us comments down below. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next one.